Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie from StoryADay here. And in this month of thinking about ways that we can improve our writing, I wanted to bring you an excerpt from my Story a Week project, which I started a year or two ago, and it was a paid newsletter that people could subscribe to, and it went for 52 weeks, and now you can get the whole thing. But what is this thing? It was basically an email that came to you every week talking about stories and giving you a writing prompt. I used to do this kind of thing for free at the website, and then I realised that people weren't really sticking to it. So I made it into a thing that you had to subscribe to and you had to make a commitment to, and that just showed up in your inbox every week and encouraged you to write a story. The idea being that you would at least be thinking about story issues every once in a while. So if it's something that sounds like something you'd be interested in subscribing to, you can still get that. And it's available at StoryADay.org/story a week. But before we even get into that, let me give you an example of the kind of thing that you might get. First of all, you'd get a letter. Sometimes it contained a story from me. Sometimes it contained just something I was thinking about in the context of writing. And secondly, you would get a writing prompt, which would prompt you to think about a story in a new way, or to write a story, to try a technique. There are 4 different seasons, each season concentrated on a different aspect of storytelling and the writing life. So let's get started with something from season 2, which was all about finding your voice as a writer. It's one of the things that you can't help but have, but it's also one of the things that is hardest for me to convince people that they have. And it's so important because once you realise that you have your own voice and your own perspective, it's much easier to skip over that question, that voice in your head which says, what's the point in me writing? That voice is always going to exist, but when you remember that you have your voice and your own unique perspective on things, it makes it easier to ignore that voice and just get down to doing the thing you love and the thing that contributes to the world. And of course, one of the things that helps you to find your voice is writing more. So season 2 was all focused on ways to look at your character and find your character and put them in situations. One of the things that I did in season 2 was I spent 5 or 6 weeks talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how we can use that to find things that our characters need. Because we know that characters need something, they also desire something, those things may not be the same thing, and that can drive the story forward in ways that make it easier for you to not worry about the plot so much. If you're always thinking about what does the character need, what does the character want, then your plot is going to sort itself out. Not entirely, but it's a good start. Let me take you into the beginning of that series of writing prompts. Here's what I wrote that week. Dear hungry writer, have you ever heard of that running program Couch to 5K? It's a training program that takes utter slugs like me and leads them gently through the process of training to run a 5K race, which I did. It does it by focusing on consistency, taking things slowly, and removing false narratives about what running should look like. The program not only allows you to walk during your run, it mandates it. This was such a surprise and a relief for me and for many other people who never thought they could run, because they had this picture of it as all marathoning or sprinting all the time or being made fun of if you ever needed to slow down for a little walk. And yet this program actually commands you to do that. I don't know why it was so surprising to me when I interviewed author Mary Robinette Kowal, as she shared a similar strategy for ramping up your writing. If it should happen that you've been, let's say, a little less than productive for a while, and you can hear the whole interview by following the links in the show notes for this episode. After you finish listening to this episode, scroll down, click on the little information button on this podcast, and follow that link there. So the method, in short, it was basically start by writing 150 words on day 1. Then come back and write slightly more words the next day. Gradually increase the number of words until you can manage a good amount consistently. Now, can you imagine getting to your desk and saying, nope, I cannot manage to write 150 words. It is impossible. Of course you wouldn't say that. 150 words, even if they're rubbish, you're not investing that much time. You can write 150 words. You'd be embarrassed about yourself if you couldn't. It might be hard to get started. They might not be good words, but you can do 150 words. If that's the win condition, you can win the day. It's sensible because we're in this for the long haul, right? You're a writer. You're going to be writing forever. You might as well build up your muscles slowly. There's no rush. Although with the Story Week programme, I'm sending out weekly writing prompts. I always say to people that they don't need to feel that they need to be writing complete stories every week. For a bit. Play for a bit. Keep going with some of the ideas and let go of the others. But just keep showing up. That's the value of this year-long programme of writing prompts in your inbox, because this creative work is your food. It's one of your basic needs. It's worth going slowly and steadily to make sure that we always have it in our lives. Keep writing, Julie. And that's how the letter part of a Story a Week email might start. In fact, you'll see this story if you sign up for the Story Week Year of Short Story Writing Prompts at storyaday.org/. In the PS, I pointed out that the next 5 prompts and lessons make up part of a series that'll help you create characters and stories that readers find irresistible. So I was doing there what we do in our stories a lot, which is seed an idea at the beginning of the story, create a little suspense, create a little tension, promise something, open a loop that hasn't closed yet. So I told people it was good to be consistent. Then I told people the next 5 lessons are going to be all related and they're all going to build on each other, and you should read them even if you're not writing to all of them. And that just plants an idea in people's head that there's something coming they can't resist staying tuned for. And that's something that I learned from writing fiction. It's something that I learned from reading fiction. So little look behind the scenes there of how I'm motivating you constantly throughout the year during Story a Week if you sign up for that. Okay, here's how it went after that. Here's the prompt for this particular week of the Story a Week programme, and the prompt is simply write a story in which your character needs food. And here's the lesson. For the next few weeks, we'll be exploring character needs. If we don't know what your character desires, why on earth are we reading about them? Without an obstacle to that desire, where's the story? If they don't have a desire that they're pursuing. Luckily, for us writers, humans have many desires for writers to draw from. To stop you from getting overwhelmed, I'm going to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to prompt you to write about different types of desires each week for the next few weeks. Some of these needs are pretty basic, and fighting for them could result in a very dramatic story. Can't breathe? Those stakes are pretty high. Coming into conflict with someone whose morality is different from yours? That story needn't actually involve life and death stakes, but the stakes may still be high. Remember, there's more than one kind of death. Things to consider. This week we're starting at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs with one of those most basic physiological needs, sustenance. Remember that to make this story and your character compelling, they must need food above all else at this particular point in their lives, on this day, in this story, at this moment. You should figure out how they got into this state and why they can't just pop down to the vending machine and satisfy their hunger. Don't launch into this explanation at the start of your story, though. Figure it out before you start the story. Do some brainstorming. Do some thinking about this. Start this with the character's feelings of hunger and weakness. Think about how that manifests physically, and give us some character insights by showing how they deal with this adversity throughout the story. Give hints about why this is more than just normal hunger. Perhaps they're stranded somewhere. Perhaps they're trapped in an interminable meeting with their blood sugar dropping. This prompt easily lends itself to both comedy and horror. I can even see romance coming from this. You get to pick how you want to tell this story, in what tone and in what genre, but your character still needs a need. So remember, as you're writing, to put obstacles in your character's way. If possible, include other people and movement so that your character is not simply in his or her own head. There's a place for that, but it can be much more fun for the reader if your character is interacting with things rather than just delivering a monologue from inside their own head. Feel free to experiment with form. Have your stuck in a character meeting texting a friend who's sending him pictures of the sumptuous lunch she's having right now. Or include items from menus and recipes if your character has reached the hallucinating about food stage. You can have fun with this. It doesn't have to be a stream of consciousness complaint about how hungry they are. Short stories are great because you can do all kinds of weird stuff and short story readers will accept it. This is a great opportunity to practice your sensory descriptive writing. Have me licking my lips or clutching my stomach as I feel and taste what your character feels and longs for. Don't forget to resolve the problem. Will they find food, or will they find a way to deal with the hunger? Again, as with all short stories, you don't have to give us the whole story on the page. Stuff can have happened before we meet your character. You can leave us at a point where we can make intelligent choices about what we think is going to happen to the character afterwards. You don't need to show them getting to the food, eating the food, enjoying the food. You don't have to show them being thwarted a fourth time. You get to decide which part of the story you tell in a short story, but some kind of resolution or hint of resolution is going to leave your readers much happier. And remember, 2 steps forward, 1 step back is a tried and true story formula. Keep your story moving by letting your character come close to having their desire fulfilled before snatching it away and showing us how they deal with that adversity, stripping away layers of their civility and programmed societally acceptable behavior and showing the real character underneath. This can be a great way to explore character. Put someone in an untenable situation and see who they really are underneath, and are they okay with showing that? This can be a really fun way to write a story. So there you have an example of what you might get in your inbox every week if you were subscribed to the Story a Week newsletter. You can do that right now and spend the next year with me every week, getting an email in your inbox, giving you this kind of story from me, encouragement from me, an actual writing prompt that's designed to encourage you to write a short story, and it's all curated in a way that builds throughout the year. So it starts with writing prompts and lessons that encourage you to get to your desk and then move on to the craft of writing and then move on to other aspects of writing and things you might want to explore in your short story writing, which of course feeds into your other writing, memoir and novels and all kinds of stuff. And as I pointed out, I learned how to do marketing writing and encouraging people to write by looking at techniques from fiction with that. Don't forget to tune in next week because this is what's coming. I learned things that you learn from this writing feed into all aspects of your life. I'd also make the point that if you have this email showing up in your inbox every week for a year, you are at least thinking about story once a week. There's no obligation to finish a story every week. There's no obligation to work on exactly what I write about every week, but you are at least opening, reading and thinking about storytelling once a week. And that kind of consistency is going to take you from the slug on the couch, like I was with my Couch to 5K program, to someone who can actually do the thing they want to do, which is have storytelling muscle. You can run the 5K of writing a short story. You may discover that you love it so much you want to run the marathon of writing a novel. And by the time you get there, you will have this practice of paying attention to your creativity every week. I've asked people in my StoryADay Superstars program, what is better about your life when your writing is going well, when you're paying attention to it, when you're actually working on it, when it's flowing. And they said some surprising things. They didn't say what I expected, which was, I feel optimistic that I'm going to get a publishing deal. Some of them said things that I thought were absolutely the truest, hit me the hardest and seemed the most valuable in a life that hopefully will go on for 80 or 90 years. People said things like, my day job is easier when I'm writing. And they said things like, I'm more decisive in the rest of my life when I'm writing and when my writing is going well. I have more time and more compassion for the people in my life when I'm taking time to write than when I am denying the fact that I'm a writer or not able to find as a writer. And I think this is to do with who we are fundamentally as humans. We're not machines. We're not AI. We're not here to just churn out content or make widgets or do the housework or all the obligations that we have. We're not just here for that. If you look at hunter-gatherer societies, they did not spend 12 hours a day working. They foraged they maybe went on a hunt, and the rest of the day was spent building community, hanging out, each other's hair, making the camp comfortable. They spent a lot of downtime. If you look at people living on farms, they work really hard in certain seasons of the year. And the rest of the year, it's not a 12-hour day. It's milk the cows and then fix some farm equipment and have an early night. We have seasons. We're not meant to be working on this factory model, which the last 200 years has taught us. 200 years out of the history of humanity is not a long time. We're not adapted to this lifestyle that we've given ourselves. Being more decisive in the rest of your life makes the rest of your life easier. And when you are making all the decisions in your fictional world for your characters, for your settings, for which words you're going to use, you get used to making decisions and it just becomes easier. And the rest of your life, it becomes easier to make decisions. Or maybe it becomes easier to make decisions because you're determined to do this quickly and free up some time so you can get back to your story. They always say, if you want something done, give it to someone who's busy. Someone who's busy and motivated doesn't have time to procrastinate and faff about and wonder and worry and second guess and overthink. So if your writing is going well and if you're motivated and consistent about showing up for it, it really does help with decisiveness in the rest of your life, in the same way that someone who's busy will get more done on 4 projects than they would if they only had 1. You want to get back to your writing, so you're like, I'm going to do the dishes now and not worry about them because then I can have an hour to work on my writing. So anyway, that's why I am so determined to help people who know they are writers but are having trouble acting on it, to act on it. Because I know and I've seen over the past 15 years how much it improves your whole life to be writing. You're thinking about what makes humans tick. You are making time for yourself and honouring that part of you that is creative and needs to be fed. You're not everybody else's rented mule. You get to do things that feed you as well. Just like our character in the story today needs to be fed, you need to be intellectually fed, and Making Fear does it. When you are happier, you are nicer to the people around you. When you are fulfilled, you are more confident, and therefore you have both feet planted on the ground and people can't sway you. You're a writer, but that confidence from honouring your spreads into other things. You have more confidence in other areas of your life too. You are used to creating worlds and defending people's positions in it, and so you're more able to defend your own position in the real world when somebody tries to shake you with an ideological question or argument. You're much more centred and able to stand and just stand up for yourself. I know this sounds overblown, but I've seen it happen. And so I just want you to prioritise your writing, even when it's not going well, especially when it's not going well. Just keep turning up. And of course, I'm going to suggest that one of the ways that you show up for your is to subscribe to my Story a Week newsletter, which you can find at storyaday.org/Story a Week. But if you're not doing that, what's your plan? Let's make a plan. And if the plan that you have at the moment is I will write when I feel like it, or if the plan that you had last month isn't working for you anymore, how can you improve upon that, or how can you adapt it for this coming season? We're in the summer here in North America, and it's hot and people are busy and some people have time off and people are traveling and things are a little, people's schedules are uprooted. All of us in the Western world have this kind of September is the beginning of the school year and therefore we're going to knuckle down and get to work mindset. That's coming. That's another season that's just about to come. So be thinking about what you can learn from this season's productivity, creativity, whatever you've experienced, and take a minute to look at how you could improve that and what plan you could put in place that might help you be more consistent, show up more, and let your writing go. Okay, that's what I have for you. Use the prompt that I gave you this week. Think about your character's needs. Think about subscribing to the Story a Week newsletter if you haven't done it before. Think about what you can do to improve the circumstances that will allow you to, in the coming season, make small changes. Don't expect to be able to upend your life and suddenly write 2,000 words a day in a shed in the middle of the woods next to a stream that feeds into the sea and there's a mountain nearby where you can go for walks. This stuff, Fantasyland, we live in the real world. We can give those fantasies to our characters, but it's rare that we actually get to live them. So thinking about how you can improve incrementally the situation you are in to allow you to write more, because the benefits of that are going to spread out to everybody around you. Really and truly they are. Okay, so write a story, think about your process. That's what I have for you this week. And think about subscribing to the Story a Week newsletter if you haven't done it before. If you have done it before, you have access to all of those prompts and you can find them and you can go back to them at any point, anytime you need inspiration. If a purely written email once a week doesn't do it for you, I've also got my Story Week Challenge Handbook from StoryADay Challenge Handbook from this year's challenge, which is available at storyaday.org/challenge-handbook. Now that's 31 lessons and prompts with videos and audios from me following a similar structure, but with 31 all new prompts that you may not have seen before. So there's two ways that you can get a hold of lots and lots of content where I'm giving you lessons, I'm building on what you're writing every week. You can dip in and out of them, or you can go through them as a program. It's entirely up to you. Lots of resources here. And thank you for your support if you decide to take me up on one of those offers. That's what I have for you this week. I'll be back with more writing advice and prompts. And if you like this podcast, leave a review, subscribe, tell your friends, all the usual stuff. All right, keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week and of course, keep writing.